at least, I don't think we'll ever give up trying to do that.
No, I mean, that's why we are here. And I feel like the community is just getting stronger every day and people speak up. So something must change at some point.
So welcome to this episode of Finding Your Range podcast with me, Jeannie. And this is the podcast that looks into hypermobility, chronic pain, and EDS. And we try and answer all your questions with our amazing guests. And today I'm delighted because we've got the lovely Karina Sturm joining us. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her if you don't already know who she is. So Karina is Karina is a multimedia journalist and filmmaker from Germany who lived in the US for 7 years. She gained significant scientific knowledge through studying laboratory technology and working in research for several years. Due to a chronic illness and invisible disability, she found her passion for media production and has been working as a freelance journalist since 2013. And I just want to add that in 2019, she finished her master's degree by producing a feature-length documentary called We Are Visible, which some of you may actually have watched or have heard of. And the film was to highlight how to improve reporting on people with disabilities in media. We Are Visible has won several movie awards, while Karina graduated with distinction from her journalism program. Karina's main focus is to represent people with illnesses and disabilities accurately in the media to reduce biases and stereotypes. And she thinks disabled journalists should be reporting on disability. Amazing. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and you made me sound very good.
Well, that's not difficult. You've got all these amazing achievements. Really, I want to hear all about it. So obviously we mentioned in the bio that you have chronic illness and an invisible disability. So what was your personal journey? And you were obviously working in research. Did you have to totally change your job and everything because of this illness?
Yes. So that's the short answer. But I guess I should start at the beginning or a little bit more towards the beginning.
Yes.
So my story basically starts in 2010, where I became acutely and very, very ill after a medical treatment that somehow went very wrong. So I got injections into my neck. And from there, I just spiraled downhill. Like nobody really knows what happened. And I don't really want to speculate anymore because it's in the past.
Yes.
But I basically developed like lots of neurological issues, like my neck would start burning like fire and cracking, and my body was numb, like my hands and my feet, and I had motor issues and things like that, which was basically like the first symptom of craniocervical instability, but I didn't know that back then.
Yes.
So I was bedbound for a couple of months after this treatment. That dozens of doctors, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Nobody really believed me. Then I researched myself. I found craniocervical instability to make sense with all my symptoms. So I ordered myself an upright MRI because no doctor would do that. And then I got this diagnosis, and it was basically the first diagnosis I had before I even knew that I had EDS.
Ah, okay. So you've actually been diagnosed with CCI.
Yes.
That was the first step.
That was the first one, yeah.
Wow.
And from there I tried tons of treatments, like specifically physical therapy, different kinds, and also like lots of experimental and alternative things that didn't work at all. And it kind of went downhill all the time. Like from one moment to another joint would pop out or would hurt. And I just couldn't understand, because based on what I knew, it was only my neck that had issues, right? But then all of a sudden my knees were unstable and my shoulders. And I didn't know that I basically did all the wrong treatments.
Oh,
Yeah, so years and years later, I decided there must be something else going on. And since nobody in Germany believed me, they basically told me it's all in my head. I mean, you know, all those comments, right? You're a young woman, so it's just stress, your blood pressure is low, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So at the end, I decided to fly to the United States because I wanted to find answers. And that's where I got diagnosed with EDS 4 years later.
Wow, gosh. So you had 4 years of basically trying to get help and not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really stressful, isn't it, in itself? And then not feeling well on top of that.
It is, yeah. But then, I mean, my journey was kind of fast, right? Because other people spend like decades to find answers.
Yes.
So
4
years is really nothing.
Yeah, but absolutely. Personally, I mean, mine was 36 years. So, but yeah, we've all, I mean, I'm sure everyone listening can relate to everything because, you know, we've all been on some kind of journey, haven't we, with this diagnosis? So did you then, so you moved to the US then, did you?
Yeah, a little later then. It was kind of coincidental. So first I went to the US for treatments and diagnosis, and then I had a new boyfriend who happened to study in the US, and then later on I moved there.
Okay, amazing. What area, where were you in the US?
Well, I started at the East Coast. I spent some time in Chicago, and then I moved to the West Coast to San Francisco.
Oh, lovely. All great places. Lovely.
Yeah.
So during this journey, then you discovered your passion for media production. Is that right? It's kind of, so how did that come about?
Well, I think I always had some sort of passion somewhere inside of me, but I wasn't really good at school. And like, I remember this one teacher who told me that of all the things I could possibly choose, I should never, ever try writing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, especially not in German, because the subject German was really bad for me. But like, to be fair, we always had like super boring assignments and like no creative writing at all. So I'm not sure if it's 100% my fault. And like, I always had better grades in English than in German.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, so did the English study have more creative writing in it then?
Yeah, I think so. And it was just, it was more interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, to go back, so I was like really discouraged to do any sort of creative writing, but what I always did was journaling.
Yeah.
So I have, I think it's 4 boxes full of journals because I started in 4th grade.
Wow.
And it's so funny to just go through all those journals and see, all the crushes I had since that and all the drama in my teenage years. But journaling was always kind of like my coping mechanism. And it was, if you can't talk to your friends or to someone else, you can always talk to your journal.
Yeah.
So I wrote diary every day.
Oh, nice.
And when I got sick, this became even more important because all of a sudden I didn't have anything else anymore, right? Because everything went away. Like, I lost my boyfriend, my job. I couldn't really talk to my friends anymore because they didn't really understand what was happening. So I journaled a lot more. And then when I realized that there was like no resource in Germany at all, like in my native language, I started to basically put everything that I used to put in my journal in a blog.
Right.
I started blogging, and that's kind of how this developed. And then I studied journalism, and from there it just kind of articles and films accidentally.
Yeah. I mean, that's fantastic. It's great, isn't it? We can turn sort of bad experiences into, what drives us, really, our passions. And I hear that so often. Yeah.
And it's also like, in a way, I mean, I always loved my job as a lab technician. It was great. It was my passion too. But I feel like now I've actually arrived where I was always supposed to be. Like I love what I'm doing right now so much more than everything before. Yeah. So in a way, even though I don't want to be sick, I don't want to have EDS, but it also has some like good sides. And
yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm so great, you know, through having EDS and work, you know, I get to meet people like you and all these wonderful people in the community that I would never have met.
True.
If I hadn't been on this journey. So I really am grateful for many aspects of having this condition.
Me too.
It's opened up a whole new world for me. So lovely. And so you use this passion now to spread awareness and you do your advocacy work. So what does motivate you now? So why are you doing this?
I thought about this question so much, but like, very honestly, at the beginning, I think it was just pure desperation.
Yeah.
Because there just like was no resource in my native language. And I don't like to complain about things that I'm equipped to change myself. So, you know, if there is something missing, I feel like it's my responsibility to like not complain, but do something about it.
I like
at least if I can. I mean, I can't change everything, but I could do a blog, right? So I did.
Yes.
So that was, I think, what drove me in the beginning. And then over time, it was basically the community, because I just kind of reacted to what they shared with me, what was needed.
Yes.
So then it kind of became necessity.
Yeah. Very nice. Really lovely. And so let's talk about your film, which I have watched. So We Are Visible. You know, I watched it, I think, before it came out, because you sent me a preview of it. And I remember actually I was having a flare up that weekend when you sent. So I was in bed and I watched it, and it was just wonderful. It was it was inspiring, but it was also heartbreaking. I won't give anything away, but obviously there's some very sad bits in there. But you know, it's just a real triumph. So congratulations on that film.
Thank you.
So if anyone listening hasn't watched it, we'll talk about that later, but I highly recommend that you do watch it. So tell us, you know, what were you hoping to achieve with this film, and how did you make it, and what were you hoping to achieve with it?
Well, how did I make it is kind of easy. I bought a camera and started.
Yeah, no, I thought that as I said that. Yeah, it's obvious. I had a camera and okay.
No, I'm just kidding. No, it actually wasn't that simple, because like I've never filmed before. So I mean, for me, it was really like buying a camera and just pushing the button and hoping that something nice happens.
So you'd never filmed before?
No, I had no idea what I was doing.
Wow. So that just astounds me even more, because having watched that film, you'd think this was like your 5th, 6th film or something.
Oh, I wish. No.
Wow. Oh, there you go. Gosh. Okay. That is amazing. Right. Okay. So you were totally new to it.
Yeah. I mean, it was just really like I started studying. Then I always pre-plan everything. So I was reading what I had to do for my master's thesis at the end of my program, right?
Yeah.
And they said, okay, this could be like a multimedia project, or you could do whatever and shoot a documentary. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So, and I like challenges. I like learning new skills. And I figured, okay, if I do a documentary, I mean, the only subject that makes sense to me is EDS. And that's kind of how it started. And then I knew that it should be a short documentary, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But then how do you tell EDS in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
It's kind of impossible.
Yes.
So I just decided to do this feature-length film, and I had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into. It's like, how hard could it be to film a couple of people and kind of put this together?
Yeah,
it turned out to be a little harder.
Yes. Because you had lots of different people, didn't you? How many people in total were part of the film?
Including me, I think 7 families, or it was 6 countries. Yeah.
6 countries.
Yeah.
Wow. Gosh, okay. So that is a lot of organizing, isn't it?
It was, and that was, I think, even the hardest part, and well, paying for it.
Yeah.
But like just trying to organize all the different people and the activities we wanted to shoot, including or considering that I'm chronically ill and they are all chronically ill.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing really worked out the way we planned it, but in the end it was okay anyways. But it's just like I could have saved a lot of time if I just didn't plan anything and be like, let's just go there and film whatever I see.
See what happens. Yeah. God.
Yeah,
so
that would have helped.
So you had to travel around all the different countries then?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's quite tiring for you as well.
It was very exhausting, especially because I had a very tight timeline, because there was a fixed deadline where this had to be handed in. And so that was like really stressful. And then on top of it, I needed a lot of time in between to rest, because, you know, like even if I just shot for like 2 hours a day or so, it was so exhausting for me that I was in pain for the next, I don't know, week or so.
Yeah.
So there was like lots of filming, resting, and you had to plan all this.
Yeah. Yes. But, you know, when I watched the film, I remember thinking it was so good, because it was really showing the reality of what it's like to live with this condition, and in lots of different countries as well. So and so spreading that awareness, because people don't know the reality, do they? They just don't know the daily challenges that some people, or we all have to go through to some degree. Is that what you were hoping to achieve with this film, just to raise that awareness?
Yes, but also like I wanted people to feel validated and to kind of relate to someone else and to see that they are not alone. And I was also kind of hoping that, because people in the community know what it's like to live with EDS, right? So that's not too hard. But then all the people from the outside world, like our doctors, our families, everyone that's around us and tries to support us, but they don't really know how it feels to live with EDS. I was kind of hoping they get at least like a glimpse of, you know, that's our life, and that's how you, or what you can do to help.
Yes. And did you have many doctors and medical professionals watching it? And no?
I'm not sure. I mean, we did some screenings like with Johns Hopkins, for example. So there were some medical professionals, but overall, I feel like most people that watched it had EDS themselves, and they just kind of needed this to feel seen, which is great as well. I'm just still hoping, you know, because there is so much also medical knowledge in the film, in the interviews, that medical professionals maybe could use this to learn something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we talked about the obstacles and the challenges. So the traveling and working with people who had obviously chronic illness as well. Were those the main sort of difficulties you had with the filming?
I mean, it was like the physical pain, but also like some sort of emotional pain, because like for me, it was really, really tough to see, especially the children with EDS, and like seeing a child in pain is just incredibly emotionally painful. And I still to this day don't really quite understand how these kids can be so strong, because I mean, I got sick when I was an adult, right? So that's different. But if you're a child and you don't fully understand what's happening, but you still have all these issues, and sometimes like they sometimes had more pain or more issues than I had, and that was like really painful to see.
Yeah, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
We mentioned it, or you mentioned it earlier, obviously when you were going on your journey trying to get diagnosis, and it took many years. Are you happy to talk about sort of that medical gaslighting that you went through? Because I know obviously there are many people who do have that experience. What was that like?
Well, it was horrible. I mean, obviously, I would say, especially during the time where I was searching for a diagnosis, these 4 years, I was probably gaslighted for like 90% of the time. And it's like a lot of the time it had to do with me looking like a young, healthy woman. Especially the whole gender thing was a big issue. Because it's like, you're a woman, you must be exaggerating, you must be hysterical, all these, typical stereotypes, and the gender bias was huge. I didn't really know back then because I had no experience with that, but I do know now.
Yes.
And it's also like, when I think back, this has caused me like something similar to PTSD, I would say. Like, it took me years to see a doctor without just starting to sweat everywhere and feeling anxious and immediately going into some sort of like a defensive mode, because I was feeling like they're coming at me. They must be attacking me. They want to harm me, because I couldn't just trust that anyone wanted something good for me. So that was really tough. And it's like, still, I mean, I'm seeing a therapist to work through all the trauma I have experienced in the past, which is like, if you think about that medical appointments can cause you this much pain and trauma, it's horrible. Like, this shouldn't be allowed to happen.
No, exactly. There's something very wrong, isn't there?
Yeah.
That people are ending up with medical PTSD. I mean, something is broken there, isn't there, for that to be going on. Oh, I'm really sorry that you went through that. And as I said,
I'm sorry, because I know you probably went through the same thing, and like pretty much everyone else of us as well. I mean,
yeah. And you just feel, the worst thing about it is you feel so powerless. I mean, you go with, initially you go to the appointments with hope that someone's going to suddenly tell you what's wrong. And then, the amount of times I was just in tears in a doctor's surgery, and then they ask me if I'm depressed and do I want antidepressants, or do I need to see a counselor? And it's like, well, no, I just want to be heard. You're not listening to me. Very difficult.
Well, and then you start to doubt yourself. And like, at some point I thought, maybe I'm the problem. Like, maybe there really is something wrong with me. Like, if all of them think I'm just imagining this, maybe they are right. But then luckily for me, I'm very stubborn. So it's like, I do feel like there is a bigger issue, and there is something wrong physically with me. So
yeah, exactly. We do have to be resilient, don't we? And like you say, taking control if we can, organizing the MRI, looking for help. Just not accepting things when you think, you truly know yourself and you think that something is wrong. Don't accept that someone just says, it's all in your head. And I can't believe we're still having these discussions today, to be honest. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. But yes. Okay. So what would you say is your hope then for the future? Hopefully with getting rid of medical gaslighting. What can we hope for the future for people living with a chronic illness?
Well, so for EDS specifically, I would hope that at some point we have experts for all the comorbid conditions in every country, because right now, especially if I talk about Germany, we have single experts for some of the conditions, but for example, people still have to go out of country and pay for surgery out of pocket, which is impossible. I mean, thousands of dollars, for example. So that would be my first hope, that at some point we can get the care we need where we live, no matter where that may be, which is a big hope and probably a little unrealistic, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, that would be wonderful. It would. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would be nice if like at least every doctor would have heard of EDS once. Yes. So, if they see someone with EDS, it doesn't take us decades to find a diagnosis. Yeah. So that would be nice. And then for chronic illness overall, I think and that's a big one too. I hope that everyone has the access to the care they need, no matter their background, their ethnicity, their gender, their sexual orientation, and so on, because everybody deserves to be treated. But, well, as I said, that's probably very unlikely to happen soon as well. So.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's why, yes. And that's why, work that you do, and that everyone in the community does, to keep trying to raise awareness is so important, right?
Yeah.
At least, I don't think we'll ever give up trying to do that.
No, I mean, that's why we are here. And I feel like the community is just getting stronger every day, and
Absolutely.
people speak up. So something must change at some point.
Yes. Yeah. I might be being very simplistic here, but I always struggle to understand why people don't recognize EDS, doctors, because if someone comes with, a whole list of symptoms, and, they've got the pain, and they've got all the, say, gastro and, headaches, and, you can see in their skin, and when you touch them, and they're hypermobile, and I just don't understand. It doesn't seem that difficult to me to kind of go, oh, that seems to be lots of different things. I don't know. It just seems very simple to me. I don't know why it's so difficult for people to say, oh, have you ever considered a connective tissue disorder?
I guess it's because, and I don't want to talk bad about all the doctors, because as we both know, there are great ones out there as well. But like, a lot of doctors have this image of someone who is sick and disabled as someone who is like basically half dying, lying in bed, sad, staring, at the wall or whatever. Yes. They don't, like, if they see you as like a healthy looking young woman, they don't expect sickness, especially not something as severe as EDS. And like, when I went to the doctor a couple of weeks ago, he was like, oh, I read your 40 pages summary of your conditions, and now you're sitting right in front of me, and this is not what I expected.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay. Yeah, I know, because I have like 20 diagnoses, and some really severe ones, like even life-threatening sometimes, and I just don't look like it, because they don't expect me to look like this. So
yes. Wow. At least he was honest, right? I mean, that's
he was. He was actually very nice.
Yeah. And that probably goes through everyone's mind, right? When someone walks in their room and they're like, oh, this person looks okay.
Yeah, he probably expected someone like very old, very fragile. And yeah, I was sitting there smiling through my face mask, and we're like, hey, good to see you.
Yeah, the whole perception thing has to change, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. So what advice could you give to our listeners about living with EDS or another chronic condition? Any top tips or guidance?
That's always one of my favorite questions, because like I'm really the worst person at giving advice, because I don't really follow my own advice. I think the most important advice I could give is that people should stop fighting themselves and accepting their new life as a chronically ill person. And like, I'm not saying stop fighting for better treatments or for improving your quality of life. Just like, I was fighting so hard to kind of get my old life back, like my pre-illness life. And I hurt myself so badly doing this. Yes. And when I got to the point of accepting my condition, everything just immediately got better.
Yeah.
And that's
totally agree with that. That was a piece of advice, a client who had EDS before I knew I had EDS. And so we became friends. And it was the first she said to me, because I was like you, I was like, well, why can't I do this? Why am I always getting tired? And she said, you have to accept it, because you're still fighting. And she was right. When you do, like you say, it's not that we stop fighting for treatment or being heard, but accepting in ourselves. Actually, we have to adapt. We have to change maybe how we do things.
But that's so hard.
Really?
I heard the same thing as well from a friend. And it was like, I think it was ill for like 6 months or so. And it was just way too early to hear that, because it was like, I'm not accepting this. Like, this is not how my life is supposed to be. Like, there is a huge process in between where you basically grieve your old life and you grieve everything you've lost, and then you start to rebuild. So it's not as simple as just accepting this.
No, absolutely.
I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it gets easier once you're at the point of accepting and kind of starting to rebuild a new life.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. It is a process, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, there is that going through that period of loss and grief. I hear that a lot from people who come to see me, that they,
Exactly.
you know, they're grieving their previous life. And the worst thing is, for many people, is that these symptoms can come on almost suddenly.
Yeah.
Some people are asymptomatic, they're doing, you know, living their life, and all of a sudden they have a virus. Yeah, exactly. They have
Like
a surgery.
cells.
Yeah. And literally someone switches the light and your
Mm.
whole life is just changes overnight. And it's like, how can that happen?
Yeah.
How does that even happen? And that's one of the hardest things with this, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how can you not get back to, like, you were just a healthy person, and in a matter of like a minute, you become chronically ill, and there is no way back. And it's so hard to kind of wrap your head around that fact that this is not going to happen.
Yeah. 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 And it is a case then of, like you say, adapting. We need to adapt. We need to make changes to our lifestyle, maybe. And then, going through that process, and then finally getting to acceptance. And then,
That's also kind of like my second advice that kind of goes along with this acceptance, is that you need to find a new purpose, like something that fulfills you. Mm-hmm. Because like losing pretty much everything that defines you. I mean, in my case, this was like my job, and then I did lots of sports competitions, and then all of a sudden this all was gone, and I was like, what am I even good at? Like, who am I? Mm. And I felt so lost and kind of worthless. Mm. And like, I'm not saying you should define your worth over, you know, achievements or whatever, but you do need something that kind of fulfills you and makes you feel useful. At least that's me. So.
Yeah. And I think that's probably why so many people end up turning their illness into, you know, turning it into for the force for good, you know, for the greater good. Like the work you do. It's and it's coming really from the heart, isn't it? It's and you know, that means a lot. So it
makes you feel like you're doing something that's really helping, and that's kind of leaving behind footsteps and all this. And I did not feel that way when I was working in a lab, you know what I mean? Like, it was important in a different way, but it didn't mean the same thing to me, because this changes things for people that have the same issues as I have. So
I can totally relate to that, you know.
I know, because you're doing the same thing.
But I totally, you know, I just I can't put it into words, but it just means everything to me, the work that I do. And no matter how small, if I could give someone a small piece of information or a little helping hand along the way, then that's brilliant, you know.
I know that, because I've seen your exercise program and all the work you put into your videos, so it's very obvious how much this matters to you.
I mean, I just live and breathe it. So like, you know, like you do with your work, like so many people do. So fantastic. Well, how can they watch the film still? How can they find out more about your work? Or what's your blog? We need to know what your blog is.
Well, so the film is still on Vimeo on demand. It's called We Are Visible, so you can stream it there. Mm-hmm. And you can find all of my work. I have a journalistic portfolio website. That's karina-sturm.com. Mm-hmm. And that's linked to like the film and to all my articles and everything I do. And otherwise, I'm basically on all your preferred social media platforms. Not TikTok, because I'm way too old for that.
Me too. I'm not going on TikTok either.
No, I think I'm just no. But you can find me on Facebook, Insta, and Twitter, and also LinkedIn.
Yeah, perfect. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and that's just your name. If they search your name,
that should work.
Perfect. That's brilliant. So as I said, I highly recommend watching We Are Visible if you haven't already seen it. It's really wonderful, really wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today and answering all our questions. And really nice to connect with you sort of face to face, as it were. Not that we've not met in real life yet. Hopefully, maybe one day we will, which would be great.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And thanks for inviting me. I really had fun.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to our listeners for listening and watching this episode with Karina. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, either get in touch directly with Karina on social media or via her website, or you can leave comments down below and I will make sure she gets them as well. So thank you again. And until next time, keep moving.